The main story tonight, tens of thousands of Orange men have been on the march at 19 venues across the province to celebrate the 299th anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. Also tonight, the lengthy negotiations to form a coalition government in the Republic have reached a successful conclusion. The Fianna Fáil leader, Charles Haughey, is the new Taoiseach, and it's believed the Progressive Democrats get 2 cabinet seats.
Good evening. Well, streets and country lanes throughout the province have been filled with the sound of 12th parades for this, the 299th anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. Tens of thousands of Orangemen turned out for the demonstrations. In Belfast alone, some 25,000 of them and bands were on the march. Outside the city, there were 18 other venues. In County Armagh, the controversial parade through Keady passed off without incident. We've had cameras at all the main demonstrations. We start with a report from here in Belfast, the venue of the biggest of the day's parades.
King Billy, astride his mount, looked down on the beginning of a Belfast parade, which organisers believe is one of the biggest the province has seen. The streets resounded to more than 200 different renditions of the tunes made famous during the marching season. The procession to the City Hall stopped for its traditional display of respect for those who fell during the 2 wars, and those whose lives have been claimed by terrorism during the past 20 years. As many as 20,000 Orangemen were on the march with their bands, and probably as many again turned out to watch them. The parade wound its way through the city centre. Streets had been sealed off from early morning. The weary were given a lift, and trainee baton twirlers had a chance to get the feel of things. By 12:30, the long procession was winding through the green lanes towards the field at Edenderry. It was here that the 3 resolutions of loyalty, faith and state were to be read out to the thousands who packed the site. The first resolution affirmed the Orangemen's loyalty to the Queen. The second was a call to all Protestant churches to return to the faith of the Reformers. The third resolution called for tougher government action to counter terrorism and was a reiteration of the Orange Order's opposition to the Anglo-Irish agreement.
It may mean that if they're not going to listen to us, we may have to go back to the streets again, and the people who have abided within the law will have to use street politics since the government is not listening to the ballot box and their elected politicians.
Is that a veiled threat from you?
No, it's not a veiled threat. It's quite frankly a reminder to a government that they cannot, in the year of the bicentenary of the French Revolution and coming into the 300th anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne, that right at the heart of modern democracy is a government accountable to the people.
Those not interested in politics made the best of a sweltering afternoon. There was help on hand for sore feet as the marchers prepared to head back to the city.
The controversial Orange Parade in Keady has passed off without incident. There was a big security operation in the predominantly nationalist town in case of confrontation between loyalists and local people who were opposed to the march. About 7,000 Orange men took part in that parade.
Last night in Keady, a small group of loyalists put up flags and bunting on the Armagh Road. When they left the town, nationalists took some of the decorations down and set fire to a number of flags. The police moved in and there was a minor confrontation between them and the nationalists. A local priest negotiated with RUC officers. After a time, loyalists came back to the scene and removed the decorations in what they called a gesture to the decent people of Keady. This morning, the police mounted a big security operation as the Orange men paraded through the town. The route had been shortened after consultation between the police and the Orange Order. About 400 RUC officers were on duty. The soldiers provided backup in what was believed to be the biggest security operation outside Belfast. By mid-morning, the town was crammed with thousands of spectators, watching about 150 bands. It seemed that most of the locals ignored the parade. European MP Jim Nicholson, who lives near Keady, said he was pleased with the behaviour of the Orange Men.
We are very pleased that it has gone off as it has, and it just proves how right we were, that had those people who interfered at the very start and caused all this problem by their speculation. And it all arose from speculation from day one. Had I kept quiet, and there's an old saying that you have to keep your head when all about you lose theirs. Unfortunately, a lot of people lose their heads at a time like this, and I think the Orange Men are to be congratulated for the way in which they have conducted the proceedings here today.
Light refreshments were the order of the day as the sun grew stronger. At the demonstration field, the mood was relaxed. For some, they had seen it all before. For others, it was a chance to improvise for a bit of shelter and rest the weary feet after a long walk.
The Ulster Unionist leader Jim Molyneux has said he believes Unionists won't have to wait long before the Anglo-Irish agreement disappears. He was speaking at the Orange Order's Hillsborough demonstration.
The Hillsborough parade began in the town's main street. 78 lodges were represented. Orange Order officials said the number taking part, over 5,000, was the largest on this particular parade for 25 years. That figure was probably equalled by the number of onlookers. It took most of those in the procession little more than an hour to walk the 5-mile route, despite the hot sunshine. It's the first time Orangemen have held a 12th parade in Hillsborough since the signing of the Anglo-Irish Agreement at Hillsborough Castle. Not surprisingly, it was to this subject that Jim Molyneux turned in his speech. He likened Unionists and their opposition to the agreement to a ship waiting for the right conditions to set sail. That time was approaching, he said.
The waiting will soon be over. The voyage can soon begin. Once we are freed from the burden of the dying diktat, we could and would and will cooperate with Her Majesty's government to the betterment of all the Ulster people. What was achieved by the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State, and the 3 Northern Ireland parties in Parliament, in the case of Harland and Wolff, we could go on repeating on an ever-widening scale.
The Larne district of the Orange Order was host to 8 other districts in one of the largest demonstrations to be seen outside the city of Belfast.
10,000 paraded through Larne, 2/3 of them members of Orange lodges from 9 different districts. Thousands of spectators looked on from the sunny side of Main Street as the procession headed for Sandy Bay, just 2 miles away. The parade organisers say they've paid for public liability insurance covering them for up to £1 million in case of any accidents involving those taking part, especially from any flying objects. Everyone seemed intent on having an enjoyable 12th, none more so than one young blind woman determined to make her own special contribution. Even world champions turned up to entertain. It took the parade 1 hour to pass any given point, and at the field there were no political messages. There was a religious service, passing of this year's resolutions, and then the homeward journey. A few miles further along the Antrim coast, Orangemen gathered in Carnlough. After a religious service, they heard Larne Ulster Unionist councillor Tom Robinson warn that with Britain already committed to United Ireland, positive steps were needed in opposition.
If we are forced into a situation where the British government are saying you are going into United Ireland, then we will be left with no alternative but to set up structures of government that will be representative of the majority community.